Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this core presentation by Dr. Ndlovu and Professor Nkomo. The text of our presentation is Isichazamazwi, age 20, Reflections on its role and the future of Zimbabwean lexicography. As way of introduction, ladies and gentlemen, the first point that we need to highlight, it's been 20 years since the publication of the ISN, which came out in 2001. And its publication was historic for isiNdebele of Zimbabwe as the first monolingual general-purpose dictionary. The objectives of this presentation are as follows. Our first objective is to examine the reception of the ISN in the formal use of isiNdebele in selected key domains such as education, the media, publishing industry, language mediation industry, and we are looking at this from the period this particular dictionary was published to date. And then the second objective is to examine the use of ISN in the said domains since its publication. In essence, what we want to do, we want to examine the development of dictionary culture among isiNdebele speakers since the publication of ISN. Prior to the publication of ISN, there was only one dictionary of note in the language compiled by Reverend J.N. Pelling, carrying the title A Practical Ndebele Dictionary, and it was published in 1971. There were, of course, other few, less illustrious works which were produced for the use of secular missionaries, prospectors, farmers, and colonial administrators. For example, a vocabulary of Makala and Matebe languages intended for the use of prospectors and farmers in Mashonaland, which was compiled by Will. For these earlier works, the development of isiNdebele for use in high-function domains was not a primary goal. The ISN had a new focus altogether. It was clearly linked with the issues related to intellectualization, development, elaboration, cultivation, and modernization of isiNdebele. The ISN addressed the following key issues that are related to language standardization as echoed by Hadebe 202 in that particular dictionary. He was looking at standardizing the spelling, the grammar, the vocabulary, and the terminology of the language, among other issues related to language standardization. The expectation when ISN was published was that it was going to emerge as an authoritative reference that could be used for guidance, especially for written and spoken use in formal settings. The expectation was also that written and spoken language use in formal settings could be produced with less challenges in isiNdebele. When ISN was published, there were already existing challenges which this particular dictionary had to be confronted with. The first one being a poor, if not a non-existent dictionary culture among the target users. And again, it was also confronted by this prevailing myth in African speech communities that dictionary assistant is not required in one's mother tongue. As such, given the outlined challenges, without a dedicated dictionary pedagogy in schools, in teachers' colleges and universities, Isichazamazwi faced a huge risk of having a limited functional impact of addressing the lexicographic needs of the target users and that of developing a dictionary culture, because it is coming against a background where the dictionary culture among the target users is almost non-existent or to some extent poor, if I may say. And this is largely stemming from the misconception that people think that if you are a native speaker of a particular language, there is no need for assistance, in the form of a dictionary. And as such, there was need, and that expression that for this to happen, there was need for dedicated dictionary pedagogy in schools, in teachers' colleges, and universities, so that there is that process of imparting and cultivating the culture of using dictionaries among the target users. The ISN, came in 2001, and this has been followed by huge and significant policy developments, which have really, affirmed the use of isiNdebele since it's been accorded the status of an officially recognized language in the 2013 Constitution of Zimbabwe, And this came with an expanded use in terms of the use of the language in high function domains, and which then meant that there's going to be need for the production of more text in isiNdebele. And for us, this meant that this will mean and mark an increased use of Isichazamazwi esiNdebele when isiNdebele is used to facilitate multilingual service provision in cases where language mediation services are needed, in cases where editing services are required, especially in the work of Section 6 of our Constitution 63B, which promoted the need to take into account the language preferences of people affected by governmental communication and measures. Also, Section 70 of our Constitution, which actually guaranteed issues to do with the right to an interpreter in the courts. All these were providing that enabling environment for the increased use of Isichazamazwi esiNdebele. In terms of the methodology of this particular presentation, we employed a multi-method approach to data collection in our quest to examine the reception and use of Isichazamazwi esiNdebele, which in essence was meant to help us gauge the user's dictionary culture since the publication of the dictionary. We also studied curriculum documents for schools, teachers' colleges, and universities with the aim of examining the role of ISN in isiNdebele studies. We looked at the syllabus for isiNdebele in primary and secondary schools, the course outlines and module outlines for teachers' colleges and universities, just to look at the place of isiNdebele, Isichazamazwi esiNdebele, in these key documents where the language is used, to check if it is included as a key reference text, for students and learners in these particular levels of education. We also administered 2 short questionnaire surveys, a general questionnaire for book publishers, media practitioners, language mediators, academics, and school curriculum developers. And then another one which was specifically for lecturers at teachers' colleges, where we are focusing on the ISN and dictionary pedagogy for ISN pre-service teachers, because our wish was to see whether teachers are being trained on dictionary culture in terms of dictionary pedagogy, so that when they are deployed in schools, they also impart these kind of skills of valuing and using dictionaries. We also observed the patterns of dictionary use among the said participants and in these domains. And the other key source of our information, we aimed at studying sales record of ISN since its publication with the publisher College Press. This is how we sought to collect our data. These are some of the findings that came from our questionnaires. What we noted is that questionnaires which were completed by language mediators, media practitioners, and a variety of language mediators, including court interpreters, parliament interpreters, we noted that these practitioners demonstrate an awareness of the value of Isichazamazwi esiNdebele. They have an appreciation of the value of Isichazamazwi esiNdebele in their line of duty. And this mainly came from trained interpreters, those that have gone through training, formal training in the field of translation and interpretation. These actually, indicated that there is indeed that need for this kind of a resource. However, for those interpreters who were engaged, largely based on their bilingual skills, who were not trained in the field or were not trained in the field, there was this general lack of appreciation of the value of these dictionaries in their line of duty. And these views of these untrained interpreters confirmed for us the views that were submitted by Regal and Covers 2014, who noted that an interpreter who does not consult a dictionary when in doubt is arrogant or ignorant or both. And for us, for these interpreters who are not trained, it really borders on issues of ignorance, where they've not been really trained on the value of these dictionaries in their line of duty, because these are people who are language mediators, but they've not gone through formal training in this particular field, and hence they really lack that appreciation of the relationship between their job and the need to consult dictionaries. What we also noted is that individuals who are in tertiary institutions especially, my apology, what we noted is that these individuals who are trained interpreters and trained interpreters in the courts in Parliament and in the media fraternity, as individuals, they indicated in their numbers that they do not have copies of their own of Isichazamazwi Ndebele. And we also noted that they confirmed that in their institutions where they are working, they also do not have copies of Isichazamazwi Ndebele. For us, that was really a cause for concern. These are language mediators, these are editors, but they don't have copies of the dictionary, yet they are interpreters, number one. Number two, the institutions that they are serving in also do not have copies of these dictionaries. And for us, this was a reflection of the low dictionary culture among the target users of Isichazamazwi Ndebele. And we also analyzed documents of the schools and teacher training colleges, their curricula, the syllabi. What we noted in schools, the syllabus for primary and secondary schools, Isichazamazwi Ndebele is not a prescribed reference material. And what we also noted again in the course outlines and module outlines for teacher training colleges, the module outlines do not include Isichazamazwi Ndebele as a prescribed reference material. Again, this reflects the lack of appreciation of the value of this dictionary in the study of isiNdebele. And it also reflects that the dictionary culture among our users is still, very low. And we also noted that, however, in the colleges of these schools, there are copies of Isichazamazwi Ndebele, but it's not acknowledged in the module outlines or included as a key text in the teaching of isiNdebele. It was also noted that dictionary skills or skills of using a dictionary are not part of the training program, either in the school or in the college curricula. And this in itself, therefore, affects the efforts of cultivating, ingraining, and entrenching a culture of dictionary use. Since we said earlier on that when Isichazamazwi Ndebele came out, it really confronted the challenge of a very low, if not a non-existent dictionary culture among the target users. And that then was meant to be complemented by a robust, curricula that was devoted to developing dictionary skills in the culture of using dictionaries. But we still see that even up to now, the training around dictionary skills, dictionary use is still not part of the school and college curricula, which again is a cause for concern in terms of the development of the dictionary culture. And what we also noted is that among the teacher training lecturers, some were acknowledging the value of Isichazamazwi Ndebele in the teaching of isiNdebele, but some were expressing some mixed feeling where they were saying it's not of that value in the teaching of isiNdebele. Our questionnaire findings from isiNdebele lecturers in universities reflected a very positive dictionary culture, where we noted that in the languages department, in the following degree programs, Diploma in Translation and Interpretation Studies, Honours in Translation and Interpretation Studies, the Masters in Translation and Interpretation Studies, the Postgraduate Diploma in Translation and Interpretation Studies, Isichazamazwi Ndebele features in the course outlines, and it is flagged as a key reference text or a key primary text for these particular courses. This includes even degree programs in isiNdebele, the honors programs and the dual honors programs. It is really highlighted as a key text, and it is actually indicated as a mandatory text for these students studying these programs. And lecturers teaching in these particular programs also indicate that they have copies of their own, and their university library and universities libraries and departmental libraries also have copies of these dictionaries. And they express that ISN is an indispensable tool in the teaching of isiNdebele and for students in the languages programs. And this for us confirmed that these are people who have an appreciation of the value of the dictionary. These are people who are informed of the value of the dictionary. And part of it, I think it comes from the training in dictionary pedagogy. These are people who have done lexicography. These are people who are teaching lexicography. These are people who are teaching translation. We have an appreciation of dictionary use and the value of a dictionary in the teaching of a curricula in a particular language. So what we noted is that dictionary culture among university lecturers, university students, and university graduates coming from these programs is somewhat higher. And as I've indicated, when our students in the honors program in translation and interpretation studies and the diploma were on attachment, they really came out with came back with this very positive feedback, which made clear a dire need for a compilation of a variety of Isindebele dictionaries that will actually be useful aid in their execution of tasks. And for us, this really goes to show the value of having in our curricula dictionary pedagogy to cultivate and entrench this culture of dictionary use among mother tongue speakers of Isindebele. We had indicated that sales record of Isichazamazwi were also going to be part of our source of information, and for us this was really going to be a key source of information. But unfortunately, due to the COVID and lockdown restrictions, we were unable to get the figures at the time of the recording of this presentation. We are awaiting feedback from the publisher, and we are hoping that during the conference we'll be able to respond and provide these numbers, because for us there will be a useful gauge to see how many copies were printed, how many copies were sold. This will really then help us understand the reception of Isichazamazwi. So we are promising that during our question and answer session during the conference, we'll be able to share the figures, which will give us a good picture of the sales record for Isichazamazwi in terms of its reception and use, and to some extent help us gauge the dictionary culture of the target users who are Isindebele speakers. So what we have noted as conclusion is that apart from having a central place in lexicography, translation and interpreting curricula of universities as part of the listed programs, ISN continues to be peripheral from the professional and educational activities of Isindebele speakers in their formal use of the language. We note that it is just still within the university walls that dictionary culture has really changed to the positive, where we now see that emphasis on the use of such dictionaries. But outside the university walls, a lot still needs to be done to promote dictionary pedagogy, to promote the use of Isichazamazwi. And thus, the prospects of developing a dictionary culture in the Isindebele speech community remain somewhat bleak 20 years after the publication of this dictionary. And in the context of these findings and recent closure of the African Language Research Institute at the University of Zimbabwe, which produced Isichazamazwi and other dictionaries in Tishona, this for us signals an uncertain future for Zimbabwean lexicography, including Isindebele lexicography. We are therefore saying that, especially after we receive the sales figures, we'll really be able to then make a good conclusion in terms of how well has Isichazamazwi been received by the target users, how widely used is it, and this will then give us an impression of to what extent has the dictionary culture changed in our society. We are aware that it's almost that particular period where we should have seen a change in the culture, but we are hopeful that given the changes that we are seeing in the universities, their influence should then be extended to the other levels of education and other domains of use of Isindebele. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.